Hey, welcome to the Big House Breakdown. And we are here today in a really great way on the bright side. Why? Because Michigan has defeated the Nebraska Cornhuskers in the Big Ten season opener by the tune of 30-27. Now, we got some box score that we got to talk about. We got some box score that we have to dig into real quick. So let me share my screen. I'll get into the box score in just a sec. But how are you guys out there doing? My name is Davic. Welcome to the Big House Breakdown, all things college football with a focus on the Michigan Wolverines and what happened during the weekend. So we're here to talk, we're here to review that game, what happened, the good, the bad, the indifferent. Here you see the box score. The box score is indicative of the result, 30-27. 105 passing yards for Michigan to 308 passing yards for Nebraska. 286 rushing yards for Michigan for 43 rushing yards for Nebraska. 391 total yards for Michigan, while Nebraska has 351. Underwood passes for 105. He's 12 of 22. And Dylan Raiola goes 30 for 41. 308 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Justice Haynes rushes 17 for 149 and a touchdown, a long of 75 yards. Emmett Johnson for Nebraska rushes 19 for 65. Then, of course, there are some minuses for total rushing yards lost due to sacks and other things. Jordan Marshall rushes for 6 for 80 and a tutty. And also, Bryce Underwood rushes for, I believe it was a 49-yarder touchdown run, and he winds up with 61 rushing yards on the day, including a couple of really pivotal runs to the side of the game, quarterback-driven runs. Donovan McCulley was 7 for 39, and Barney for the wide receiver for Nebraska was 8 for 120 yards and 2 touchdowns. Lyndon Meyer had 9 receptions. He led the team for 60 yards, and we'll get into his contribution and why that might be misleading. Jacorian Barney's stats might be a bit misleading as to the way that the day went on the passing game. Let's go to let's see if I can find these defensive stats really quickly. Because Michigan was the defense of the day. So I'll just read off theirs. All right. This thing needs to go ahead and move on to the defense. Okay, here we go. So, it was a sack party for the Michigan defense. Ernest Hausman, Cole Sullivan had a Ernest Hausman had a sack. Excuse me. Who else? It was 7 Michigan defenders had sacks throughout the day. Ernest Hausman had the most tackles, and Cole Sullivan had a pick for the Michigan defense. And the stats don't tell the whole tale, though. Oh, and Jayshon Barham was a terror with a crap ton of pressures, and he also had a sack on the day. Rajon Benny had a sack. It was a bunch of people. It was a sack party, like I just mentioned. So there you have it for the scoreboard. But that did not tell, that wasn't the tail of the tape. That was not the tail of the tape or the tail of the day, because what winds up happening in a scenario like you had a game of momentum, right? Shifting momentum. So first drive was all Nebraska. After that, it swung to Michigan, then swung back to Nebraska with some points. There was a lot of momentum shifts in this game. One could even say that if Sharon Moore was coaching Michigan Wolverines, then the management and the game ebbs and flows would have been a lot tighter. They would have amounted to a lot more consistency within the team, and you wouldn't have had as many fluctuations, and it wouldn't have been so reckless and sloppy a effort. And we'll get into that as well when we get into our segment called The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. So let's go over the ugly. I like to work backwards, right? The ugly was all of the momentum shifts through careless play. Oh my gosh, the careless play that caused the momentum shifts in this game. Michigan should have had if I'm telling the truth, Michigan should have had a two touchdown lead and iced this game like early in the fourth quarter when they made that long drive in the fourth quarter, ate up a lot of clock, did a lot of the things that they needed to do to solidify the game. We should have been up by two touchdowns on them. But of course, the ebbs and the flows. Nebraska missed a kick early. They were stopped on short yardage right there. That should tell you a lot about what's going on with that program. They went forward on their own territory, Michigan territory, on a fourth down and didn't win on the line of scrimmage. They missed a field goal. They came back. There was a stop. So Nebraska didn't score and wasn't really effective on the scoreboard for a good while. And then Michigan winds up, jumping out to a lead early and having that evaporate due to careless, reckless play leading to momentum shifts within the game. Um, of course, Dylan Raiola is doing the cowboy thing. He's slinging it all over the yard because Nebraska didn't have any semblance of a running game. I think the longest yard they might have had was Emmett Johnson had a 14-yard run, and that was okay on the day, but that was the highlight of their running game for the day, and it was mostly completions by Dylan Raiola on third down or Dylan Raiola getting sacked. That's how much it was a sack party and a pressure party. And honestly, in the first quarter, Dylan Raiola should have had um, a strip sack put on him and a fumble, but they called it a forward pass. So lots of ebbs and flows due to careless gameplay. Now, some people would say that playing for Sharon Moore because of his absence and having a looser coach in the Biff Poggi, who's the assistant coach on Michigan, assistant head coach for Michigan, allowed them to play a little looser, play a little freer, play to their talent levels, and a lot of that shined through on the day. But then there was a carelessness factor, even within the coaching, that led to a lot of the roller coaster event that was the game. Point swings, momentum shifts, even that Hail Mary at the Michigan was up 17-10, and then the coaching the coaching bonehead was the fact that Biff Poggi didn't call a timeout when Michigan stopped them in the late second quarter, so that he would blow the TO at 20 seconds, force Matt Rule to punt the ball because he couldn't walk the clock down to a second and throw a Hail Mary, hoping something would happen. And that was another coaching bonehead move that was a momentum swing. But like a good older coach, he managed the psychology of the Michigan players at halftime, made some corrections, made them understand that the game was well in hand. And why did he say that? Because Michigan was whooping their tails. It was belt to ass on the line of scrimmage. And if anybody's a football fan or watches football or is into football, where is the game won? more times than not. Where's the game won? I'll let somebody, y'all put that in the chat. If y'all watching, if y'all interested, the game, I'll give y'all a couple seconds. But where is football won? Primarily. Football's won on the line of scrimmage, the LOS. That's why linemen, if you're good, if you're a big boy and you're talented, you get drafted into the NFL in the first round in the first 10 picks because it's so hard to get really talented big men because they just don't grow on trees because that helps you win the line of scrimmage. So Michigan was putting belt to ass on the defensive line of scrimmage and with the offensive line, right? So this is I told you so episode, right? That's kind of how I uh, rolled it out. Now, why is this an I told you so episode when it comes to the ugly, right? Because I told you guys, if you followed the preview show, I told you that when I went to the All 22 Cam and I looked at the Cincinnati Nebraska game, I saw some problems with Nebraska's O line. And Wink Martindale, as a defensive coordinator, he's very good at, he wants to find out your weakness on your defensive line. So he could send them. He could send them dogs. He could send them stunts, them twists, those delay blitzes, those, wide nine rushes with Barham and TJ Guy and Derek Moore, right? Those are our, pretty much skilled pass rushers. And that's what happened. And then, of course, once that happens, then the defensive line starts to push the pocket in the B gaps and the A gaps. And then it was a sack party after that. 7 sacks on the day for Michigan. Could have had more. We probably could have had 2 sacks in the first quarter on Dylan Raiola, but poor tackling in the backfield negated those things. Anyhow, I told you guys the I told you so moment was the fact that I scouted Nebraska's O line. When they played Cincinnati, there was a couple of plays where their left guard and their right tackle were doing, they were dancing bears back there. The technique was poor. They were doing 360s in order to find out who they were supposed to block and where the correct blocking assignments were. And there was one time when the left guard just threw his hands in the air, like, what am I supposed to do? And that's never a good sign. That's never a good sign. Not for the Golden Boy, not for Dylan Raiola, who was supposed to be this Heisman caliber quarterback that was supposed to get in there and, you know, ride on the, Nebraska white and red horse and, slay the Michigan Dragon that everybody hates because of the scandals, right? So that was what was supposed to happen, according to the Crap-nalysis. But I told you so was because I told you that Michigan would exploit Nebraska's offensive line and their problems. And I also said that Michigan's offensive line, if we decided that we were just going to ground and pound, right? And that was the that was the good on Michigan's side, right? The ground and pound. Because they play a 3-3-5. And a 3-3-5, Belichick used to play that. There's a lot of coordinators that used to play that sort of defense because it allows you to kind of have free range with where you put your most impactful, speedy players. You don't have to have them in this like, forefront, 50 front with defined roles. For how your run fits are supposed to go. You can overload. You can rush up the A or the zero gaps. You can wide 9, wide 7. You can play around. But Nebraska's problem was that Nebraska's defensive line is real small. They're real light. So when it was time for them to line up, I hope you guys can hear me. Okay. I think I'm getting feed. Okay, cool. So, when it was time for Nebraska defensive line to get lined up and to be impactful in the flow of the game, they got worn down by the time third, fourth quarter, late third quarter, early fourth quarter, and you could tell by that long fourth quarter drive that Michigan had that might have ate up like 7, 8 minutes on the clock. And that's exactly what they should have done. That's the New York Giants remedy for the Patriots. That's the New York Giants remedy for the Buffalo Bills. Whenever you have a prolific passing team, you keep them on the sideline, concerned about an opportunity to get back in the game, utilize clock, and be effective and feeling like they have to score right away to win the game. And then, of course, that fosters and that, forces turnovers. That speeds up a quarterback's clock and forces a lot of turnovers. And that's what Michigan did. Michigan grinded them out. And then they had 3 or 4 big running plays that was the tale of the day. There's the Bryce Underwood 40-yard run. There's the Jordan Marshall 60-yard run. And then, of course, Justice Haynes, which is probably the best running back in college football right now, not tooting my own horn, because he's on the Michigan squad. He's probably the best running back in college football right now, even against Oklahoma, who's ranked, I think they're ranked like between 8 and 10 right now in the top 25. He busted a 70-yarder on them. And then he busted a 70-yarder on New Mexico. So he's done it against a variety of teams every week. And he just gets better and better and better. And I think he's the 4th Michigan running back in Michigan history to have 4 straight 100-yard games with a touchdown. So he's doing his damn thing, man. And if he is not going to be a Heisman candidate, he should be a Doak Walker Award winner if he keeps this pace up. But the tail of the tape, man, let's go to so the bad. What was the bad? The bad was that Nebraska couldn't run the ball with a really good runner in Emmett Johnson. And if Emmett Johnson was on another team, if he's on Michigan State, if Emmett Johnson is on who has a decent offensive line, if Emmett Johnson is on Iowa, man, they're contenders because that dude is a stick your foot in the ground and go get it, go eat type of running back. And he likes the contact. He likes to run through contact. That's his get down. So love the effort from him, but they couldn't run in between the center guard triangle. They couldn't run in between that. When you can't run in between the center guard triangle and everything you have is spilling out, that just creates too much, force fill from the safety, too much force fill from the outside linebackers and DNs, and then you just get gobbled up. And that was the tail of the tape for Nebraska's running game. And the bad from Michigan was all of their careless football. Good mugga. We gave them so many opportunities to extend drives, so many opportunities to score off of carelessness, especially that Hail Mary, man. So not only was the Hail Mary problematic in itself, but you had a defensive end back there. Granted, TJ Guy is 6'4", 6'5", so he can play like I don't know if he's a hooper and maybe he has a really big vertical or something. But you gotta have the people back there that play pass coverage every day. Now I don't know if that was a matter of you don't have enough DBs to spare. I don't know if someone had cramps and couldn't participate in that whole thing and they just needed somebody athletic back there to but it was too much watching the ball. It was too cinematic for the Michigan defenders and not enough people forcing the action on that Hail Mary. And then what was supposed to happen was you're supposed to surround if you play quarters on that, right? The way you teach it as a coach is you teach your DBs to bracket the receivers or receiver with the best chance of catching the ball. And there was no bracket in front of Barney. Barney was left to his own devices, and the ball was short. And then Barney lunged into the end zone to make the score. So not only did you have a wasted defender back there, but you didn't even bracket the receiver the way you were supposed to prevent spillage or some sort of tipped or some sort of it's supposed to be a tip drill, right? Right? And really, if you're a good defensive coach, you're telling one of your guys back there to push the receiver while another person plays the receiver. It's almost like hands team. One of the person is supposed to run down and smack the most eligible receiver, and then the kicking unit is supposed to recover the ball. And it's that same sort of acclamation on the other side of it. See what I'm saying? So if you don't have that going on, then you allow spillage, you allow crazy momentous plays to happen, you allow things that aren't supposed to happen, uncharacteristic. I don't know the last time something like that happened to Michigan. Oh, we have a comment. Let me see what's going on the comments. Okay. Okay. Cool. So we'll deal with that later. So anyhow, and we have people on right now because we're multi-streaming. We're multi-streaming to Kick. We're multi-streaming to IG. We're multi-streaming to Twitch. We're multi-streaming to YouTube and Facebook. So all of y'all come in. Don't just be wandering eyes. If y'all love the sport of college football, if y'all like what we do right here on the Big House Breakdown, y'all come on in. Y'all contribute. Y'all come on in. Y'all leave a comment. Y'all leave a timestamp what you think is important about the episode. But we're talking about the bad, which was the careless, reckless play, especially. So we talked about the tip drill. And then in the second half, the unsportsmanlike conduct from Brandon Hillman. Now, I love Brandon Hillman. I think Brandon Hillman is a throwback safety that would rather, bring the pain than play volleyball. And what I mean by that, he'd rather force the action and tackle you and make you feel his presence rather than be up in the air battling for the ball. And that intimidation goes a long way. It goes a long way in game prep. It goes a long way in being, rent free in receivers' heads. They don't run crossing routes and slants and posts with the same veracity because they know they're going to get that work. You see what I mean? They're going to get tattooed at some point by Brandon Hillman, and don't think that that's not how they're game planning against this dude because coaches see it. When coaches watch tape, they see what Brandon Hillman is doing on screens. Why you think they didn't run many screens? Why you think Nebraska didn't run many east-west type of screens? They ran those little checkdowns to Lindenmeyer, the tight end. They hit about 9 of those, and that was really what made Dylan Raiola so efficient on the day. Lindenmeyer had 9 check down receptions. And then the tight end got a score on the goal line, which is never supposed to happen. And Michigan has to clean that up. That's 2 weeks against a quality opponent where tight ends are leaking out and they're scoring cheap touchdowns. So I don't know if we got to go on the goal line and work that out and go step by step and who's got what man. And I don't know if they're supposed to get hands on or not get hands on. I don't know how Wink is coaching them up for that goal line, but I know he likes to run bare in that situation. And sometimes they get mixed up in the zone on who's supposed to take the leaky tight end or the leaky receiver. So they have to get that good you solidified. The good news is Michigan has a bye week. So the other good news is the things that Michigan did careless today can all be rectified. It can all be rectified. Now, I would put Brandon Hillman on a short leash. You don't go to somebody else's house and start taunting them on their sideline doing the WWF or the WWE thing here, doing this. Yeah, come on, silly, 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 silly crap. And if you clean that up, you put him on a short leash. You say, look, any more antics out of you, that's your position. You'll be backing up. I'm gonna move TJ Metcalf probably to his better position, which is strong safety, because he's a much more active player and we got him playing nickel right now. So that probably would be an improvement coverage wise. But Brandon Hillman really adds a lot to the loaded box. So when your teams want to run or teams want to dilly dally east west, Brandon Hillman is coming down and making them feel it, which is a great thing. Michigan needs all that sort of you know juice on their side, but we don't need the antics, bro. We don't. See, when you play for that brand, that Block M, that Block M gets attention from the NFL scouts every week. and you get attention from the high school all-stars every week. They want to know what that big brand M is doing. Are they successful? Are they unsuccessful? The best defensive recruits in the nation are considering coming to Michigan, and the NFL is looking at all Michigan defensive players. And we put 5 or 6 into the pros last year. I think it was 7. We put 7 defensive NFL cats are from Michigan that went last year. Mason Graham and Will Johnson probably being the pride of that group. You know what I mean? So, and then what else was bad about the game? Um, what was bad about the game? What was bad about the game is I didn't like the way that Dylan Raiola was waving that ball around like a piece of lunch meat, man, like a loaf of bread, like a sack of meatloaf or something, and making these kind of wild off-platform throws. And man, I know he had to do something because his offensive line gave him no help whatsoever. And I know that was in his head the entire time. He tried to look as composed as he could, but it was a lot of room for him to step up in the pocket. I mean, get in the action, get in the fight, as they say. This is what coaches tell quarterbacks. Sometimes you gotta step up and get in the fight with your, you know, when you're playing a position. Because then you can put your total torque into the throw and you could really connect dots. And don't get me wrong, him and Jacorian Barney did their thing on the day, 2 touchdowns on the day. He completed 9 passes to Lyndon Meyer that were like check downs that were kind of like, escape the pressure. Let me just get this off a little bit and keep it moving. But for the most part, it was line of scrimmage domination by Michigan, and it looked like Nebraska needed to go back to the weight room. Honestly, so now we're gonna get into the good. The good was Michigan running game dominating, coming from the quarterbacks, and they let Bryce loose a little bit on that design quarterback draw or the design quarterback run up the middle. Um, Looked like a draw by the way that the lineman action up front looked like a draw. I didn't see any cross facing, so I don't think it was like a trap or some sort of like influence run, or some sort of power up the middle. So I think it was pretty much a QB draw, um, because Michigan did a lot of east west swing passes, and then of course Chip Lindsey called that play really really well. He really influenced that 3-5 uh, speedy defense to pay attention to the boundaries. And then when they paid attention to the boundaries, he killed them up the middle with that draw call. And then of course Justice Haynes, Jordan Marshall in the third quarter. Justice Haynes pretty much most of the game. Justice Haynes had this run in the fourth quarter, which I think iced the game. And nobody's gonna like talk about it, but this is what the breakdown review of the Nebraska Michigan game on the Big House Breakdown is all about. Justice Haynes had this run where he went up the middle. He got a little bit of a head of steam because of a couple of blocks by, I think it was Jake Winera and Greg Crippen. And the safety from Nebraska came up to tackle him. And man, if he didn't make him pay for that, he lowered his head and his shoulder, boom, contact to the chest area of the DB. I think the DB was either 10 or 15 for Nebraska. No, Nebraska 15 was what was the kid's name? That was their defensive end, 15, who kind of came off the edge a couple times. But I think it was number 10 for Nebraska. That was the safety. Um, Came off the edge. I mean, not kidding. The defensive end came off the edge a couple times. The safety got plowed over by Justice Haynes. And I think that was the signature of the day. That forceful, powerful, short but powerful run. I think it might have been about 7 yards. But to finish the play was a really big smack on that safety. And let me tell you something. You getting smacked around like that in the late third, early fourth quarter, that plays into your psyche, man. You really don't. A lot of defenders choose not to continue with the same enthusiasm as in the first quarter when they get smacked around late third quarter, early fourth quarter. And that's why Michigan had that long 7, maybe even 8 yard drive, and then boom, kicked the field goal. That was another signature. So Michigan kind of went back to being the antithesis of modern day football by when everybody wants to pass and everybody wants to do spread concepts that feature passing the ball and featuring running backs and receivers in space. They went back to 12 personnel, 22 personnel, bang, bang, bang ball, but they featured their, really talented freshman quarterback that joined the fray. And by doing that, they had a three-headed monster in the running game. Now, they did that a lot with J.J. McCarthy. J.J. McCarthy just was not Bryce Underwood's size. Bryce Underwood's damn near 230. He's damn near 230. He's a big old dude. He's like 6'4", almost 6'5", 230 pounds just about. So, his body could take a little pounding, you know what I'm saying? Especially if it's in spurts, especially if it's not like, every down. If it's selective running, he could take that. So, and he's showing that he can handle that load. He just has to, when he fumbled the ball, which led to that was part of the bad. I forgot about that one. When he fumbled the ball running up the middle, trying to, like, I guess, turn something into nothing. It was a busted play. On the way down, that's why that 3-3-5 defense could be problematic because the gang tackling can force turnovers. So that's what happened. They forced a turnover on Bryce. Bryce turns over the ball on a fumble, and but you got to live with that though, because on the other end of it was a 40-yard touchdown. So you got to let the young man do what he does while he's young, while he's non-injured, while he has all of the, vigoration in the world to get out there and just do it. See what I mean? So that was the good. The good for Nebraska was they stayed in the game. They found ways to capitalize on the Michigan carelessness. They found way every stinking time. This game should have been over by like 2 or 3 scores. Honestly, this game should have been over by 2 or 3 scores. But every single time that Michigan found a way to score or extend the lead, we gave it back to them being careless. And that's the marker of not having your head coach there. That's the marker of not having your head coach there. Because if your head coach is there, I guarantee you Brandon Hillman does not do what he did. He does not dance around the end zone. Why? Because the head coach probably would have went up to him in warm-ups and would have been like, yeah, you ready to have a great game? You ready to do it? You ready to get it in? No crap today. Right? And then that would have put in his internal clock, I better get some act right. Because I know my head coach is watching. And Michigan has a lot of talented DBs. So if one DB is cutting up, as good as he can be and is, you can be replaced. This next man up. And if anybody showed that Michigan's good, it was Jaden Sanders. Jalen Sanders, man, he played a game. He was great out there. And he came in for Zeke Berry. Really talented 4-star defensive back. Really technically sound. I think he had some injury concerns last year. Finally came off got healthy, able to participate, and boy, did he show up in a big way. Boy, did he show up in a big way. He made some really sound tackles. He was very good coverage-wise. I remember there was like this high-low crossing concept that they were doing. And Sanders was right there to deflect the pass or be involved with the pass breakup. It was great. And for a freshman, a redshirt freshman to come, and do something like that, you can't ask for more than that, man. That's what you want as a coach, man. You're not telling them to be perfect. You telling them get in the fight and make it a game. Make it a game. So I want to get into a couple things. I want to get into this segment called Crap-nalysis, right? So often on the Big House Breakdown, we do something called no crap-nalysis. We just getting after this hardcore football information. And man, am I tired of watching Fox Sports, NBC, CBS, ESPN, College Game Day, and all these social media sports talking channels give crap analysis on games in college football. They go by brand recognition, they go by favoritisms, who's the more popular teams in the sport, rather than looking at the actual teams themselves, how they're built, what their weaknesses are, what their deficiencies are. I could tell you right now, Michigan's deficiencies are wide receiver and defensive back. We're great on the line of scrimmage. That's the strength of our team is defensive line of scrimmage, and now it's turning out to be offensive line of scrimmage. So if all you 3-3-5 teams out there want to give Michigan that look, and you know they have inherent gaps in the 3-3-5 scheme, Michigan is just going to run the ball on you. Michigan is just going to eat you up on the line. And then by the time you decide that you need to do a 5 front or a 40 front, it's going to be too late. Michigan is already going to have over 150 yards on a day, and you're going to be feeling intimidated and behind the momentum. Also, the crap analysis, basically, instead of it being analysis, it's a lot of crap. Because like I said, they don't pay attention to what the team's health, the team's statistics, the team's strengths and weaknesses are, even what they're doing at the time, like what starters are there, what starters are healthy, how are they playing versus how they're not playing, and let that analysis seep into what's going on. Because I could have told you that Dylan Raiola was going to try to play cowboy football, meaning you're going to wave that ball around, you're going to throw off platform, because I saw him do it in the Cincinnati game. Because then I saw there was leakage in the protection against Cincinnati. But because he played two other cupcake teams, Akron and I believe it was like Houston Baptist or some school like that, they got to look good. And then because they want more blue blood powerhouse schools like Nebraska to be in the national spotlight, if they have a decent quarterback to good quarterback, they're going to pump that quarterback up. They're going to make them seem larger than life, just like they did Arch Manning, and then he wet the bed. Incontinence, right? Now they're doing the same thing with Raiola. That's all I heard. Pat McAfee, the Bussin' Boys, except for Taylor Ruwan, Josh Pate, all of the talking bobbleheads, they all took Nebraska because they thought that Raiola was going to play cowboy football, run around like Johnny Manziel and Patrick Mahomes, and save the day with these sidearm off-platform throws. And he did a couple of them, but he completed 9 checkdowns to his tight end in a flat. 9. Wow, that's nuts, man. 9? 9? So what is that average? What is that average to? Let me look. Let me see. Let me look at that box score one more time. What is that average to? If you complete 9, um, so that was he went. So it was 7 yards of reception. Ooh, you beating the world with 7 yards of reception. I mean, sign that man up for the Heisman. But when you look at the box score and you look at 30 for 41, 9 of those completions at really crucial moments were checkdowns. He wasn't out there like Kurt Warner in the greatest show on turf, just dicing them up. He wasn't Joe Montana with the 49ers dicing them up. He was matriculating the ball down the field in this really unusual way. And the Cover 3 podcast that picked Nebraska to beat Michigan, don't think I ain't watching Cover 3. When y'all picked them, y'all thought it was because Raiola was going to be playing magic ball out there. when the DNA, data and statistics, data and analytics, and the gameplay told you that Nebraska had problems on their offensive line, none of the talking bobbleheads wanted to acknowledge that. None of them. On none of the major brands, none of the major outlets that I got listed there, they didn't want to talk about that. They didn't want to talk about Nebraska's undersized defensive line that might lead to big run days. Not to mention that Akron ran on them. Cincinnati ran on them for big yards. So what makes you think a school like Michigan that prides itself on running the football and having outstanding running performances is not going to run against them? That's easy. That's what we want to do. But of course, Michigan is a team you love to hate, like Ice Cube, right? I'm the one you love to hate. F you, Ice Cube, right? Remember, everybody remember that song? Dope track. I think he used the George Clinton boom, 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 boom. Anyway, fly track. Check that out. I think it was America's Most Wanted. I think that's the name of the track. But anyway, so Michigan is the team America loves to hate right now because of the way that they painted the scandal, right? So none of these talking bobblehead sports media groups want to give Michigan any love. And let me tell you something: if Michigan clears the cobwebs of the first half mistakes and doesn't make mistakes in the second half, we beat them by 2 touchdowns. We beat that team by 2 touchdowns, and we win that game running away because they couldn't do nothing with us on the line of scrimmage. That's how football is won. That's how football is won. And you know what? That's gonna pretty much um, conclude the episode for today. But Michigan, stock up. Nebraska, even though they only have one loss, I'm saying stock down because you got to do something about that LOS. You can't think that you're a great team. You can't think that you're a team built for the playoffs or built for this. And that was the other thing, man. That was the other thing. Vomit, right? That was the other verbal vomit that was pushed out there, right? This was supposed to be Nebraska's coming out party because they lost so many season openers. They had the Wonderkin Golden Boy, Dylan Patrick Mahomes clone in Rayola, and he was supposed to make everything look great, just like they did with the Penn State quarterback 2 years ago. And he turned out to be trash. And I'm not saying Rayola is trash, but he can't do it by himself. And if you let him start doing it, if you let him do it by himself, he's going to play cowboy football. He's going to start turning into this Johnny Manziel version of a quarterback because he already admires Patrick Mahomes, and Mahomes has a lot of Manziel in him as well, where they think they can go off script and off technique, and that will help them win the game. I'm here to tell you it's not. Fundamentals are fundamentals for a reason. You know what I mean? And I'm a college football purist, but I also like to see great talent just go out there and do your thing and be great talent. And yeah, Rayola could push the ball if he's out there trying to push the ball. But if I'm being honest, if I'm being real honest, he needs help. Now Emmett Johnson is a good running back to have. Lyndon Meyer is a decent tight end to have, but you can't do anything if you don't have the big boys up front on the offense and defensive line. And I think if I'm Matt Rule and I'm the athletic director for in charge of football operations, I'm going in that portal and I'm getting some big man help. You need big man. You need big man upon. You need big men upon the team to do some great things to give you that support to bolster your unit because it's looking sad right now. And what's interesting? Last thing is, they show some clips of the '97 squad that shared a um championship with Michigan. Michigan had championship that they split with Nebraska back in the day. Nebraska was a running team. They had them big boys up front. They had them runners in the backfield. They had a running quarterback that gave them an edge, that gave them a mystery at the quarterback position. Lawrence Phillips. Anybody remember Lawrence Phillips? He was the man back then. You know what I mean? They had a nice running quarterback that could throw the ball a little something, and they took their chances. They rolled the dice. And how fitting is it that Michigan goes back on the anniversary of those championship teams? They tried to relive that moment, and it was the team that was throwing the lollipops down the field, the rainbows, but the rushing team won the day. So college football stays football because running game and defense travels and wins championships. All right, y'all. So that's going to do it for this episode and review. No crap analysis, just getting after this hardcore information on the Big House Breakdown. Peace, and I'll see y'all on Friday when we do a bye week kind of Michigan Eye in the Sky review of the team of all things Michigan football and CFB football. Join us. Timestamp what you like about the show. Leave some comments. Like, share, subscribe. Turn on all your notifications so that every time we have another Big House Breakdown, you too can participate and get involved with this college football discussion. Peace, y'all. See y'all on Friday.